All right, so I think we'll just get started now. I'm here today to tell you a bit about a journey of data analytics. And this journey takes place in a company which is moving from being a conventional hardware giant into a company fully capable of delivering customized digital solutions for its customers. So it's very much a story about supporting digital transformation through data and analytics in the case of Danfoss. So firstly, just a few words about myself. My name is Bjarke. I'm a data analyst in Danfoss. I'm based out of the Danfoss Software Development Hub at the DTU Science Park, located close to Copenhagen. I was the first person hired in for a data analytics initiative in Danfoss a bit more than 1.5 years ago. So this initiative was a central function, so a group function, where we wanted to be able to support data analytics projects throughout the organization, both by consulting but also going hands-on when making sense. So as you can imagine, then our task very much started with getting an overview of a fairly large and a fairly complex organization like Danfoss. So many of you will probably already know the organization and some of the products. It's a company with more than 25,000 employees, with offices in more than 100 countries. Biggest markets are US, China, and Germany. And it's privately held, and headquarters are located in the southern part of Denmark in Nordborg. And the business is divided into 4 different segments. Most of you will probably be most familiar with the heating segment as the most well-known B2C product Danfoss has in its portfolio is the thermostats for radiators. But as you see in the second circle here, then the heating segment is actually far from the largest business segment. We also have Danfoss Power Solutions, which is a provider of hydraulics for construction, for agriculture, and other off-highway vehicle markets. Then we have Danfoss Cooling, which is delivering many different products and services for chillers, for air conditioning system in commercial buildings, supermarket store solutions, just to name a few. Then we have Danfoss Drives, which is a world leader in variable speed controls for electric motors. So as you can see, it's a quite diverse business with many products and many business lines to it. So the big question is, of course, then, how do you support a business like that in a small team where you both want to empower the business with insights, and you also want to be an active leader on innovation and business performance initiatives? So it was quite clear for us that we needed to sit down and come up with a good strategy for this. But let's first start with some of the challenges that we met when we started this journey, and challenges that we continuously meet in our day-to-day operation. And I think many of them have already been mentioned and addressed by the previous speakers here. Just to name a few of them, then of course we always have the problem of missing analytics processes, a ton of data silos, data quality issues, and vendor-locked systems. But in overall, then I think these are quite common denominators in organizations where data analytics and services has not been part of the core business or the company DNA from the very beginning. So I think the more interesting question is to think about how do we create successful data analytics projects despite of all these challenges. And for that, I think one of the obvious answers is that you need to have an approach where you are flexible enough to be able to iterate a lot on the way, because we want to be able to both deliver results within certain timelines, so we want to have something tangible quite quickly, but at the same time also impact the organization in the long run. So one of the components that we came up with for our approach and strategy in doing data analytics in Danfoss was to work with this EOI framework for data analytics. And I suppose many of you will have seen it before, as it's quite common in business analytics teams around the world. It is widely used by organizations like LinkedIn and many of the larger enterprises in this realm. The basics of this framework is to specify projects or approaches into 3 circles. First, we have the focus on empowerment, to empower stakeholders by the insights they need at the right time and the right format. Secondly, in the second circle here, we have the optimization part, where you optimize on business performance, leveraging unique data, and typically combine it with advanced analytics techniques. So that is very much, or typically on a more strategical level. Then we have the more innovative part, where you innovate on how analytics is used to grow the business and to innovate on business models. So this framework can be used in many different ways, I believe. If you are a smaller company or a startup, then you might take it as steps you need to go through in order to become data-driven and deliver services in the best possible way. But for us and an organization like Danfoss, then it will never be possible to have a lean development in that way, where we lift the whole organization one step at a time. So instead, the way we use it is basically to make sure that we always have projects that we can categorize within each of these different circles. So we want to make sure that we continuously empower the organization with insights and sort of make the business more and more data-driven. But we also want to to work on a more strategical level, where we optimize business performance and we take advantage of advanced analytics techniques. And then thirdly, also to do something where we think out of the box and we help the business grow in new ways. So when we map this against some of the specific use cases, then I think let me first say that one thing that is quite important to mention is, of course, that data analytics is not new as such in an organization like Danfoss. It has been around for many, many years, primarily in the sense of simulation and modeling and embedded software with quite advanced algorithms and so on. But the new part here is that we have a consolidated data analytics initiative on a group level, where we try to empower the digital transformation. So what I'll show you here is 2 cases where we have supported the organization in different ways. The first one is a case for internal stakeholders, and the second one is a case for a service offering that we have in Danfoss for end customers. So the first one here is about an app that Danfoss offers. It's called the Refrigerant Slider, and it is intended for cooling technicians to be able to convert pressure temperatures between different refrigerant types when they are doing work on refrigeration systems. I'm no cooling expert, so I cannot explain you much more detail than that. But for me, it's quite comparable to a currency converter just for cooling technicians, if that makes sense. As you see, then the app is quite popular. It has been downloaded more than 1 million times. And it has been around for more than 3 years now, so we have quite a lot of data for it. It is supported on more than 200 geographical locations and supports more than 250 different refrigerant types. So what we have done in this case is to create a data model and a setup where we provide some interactive dashboards with different insights. So after talking to different stakeholder groups in the organization, then it became obvious that some groups needed insights for specific elements and some others. So for instance, the marketing team wanted to see how the number of sessions have developed over time, and also to be able to see in which regions and countries we have the sessions. That makes them able to gauge the performance of the app, and also to see how effective promotions of the app have been over time. Then secondly, we also could see or had some requirements from sales teams and from R&D teams, and what they were interested in is to see how the different refrigerant types are developing over time. So with this number of users and the many locations that we have at hand for users being cooling technicians, we can actually get some insights into the market of which refrigerant types are trending on which markets. So in this way, they can better scope the sales initiatives, and the sales drivers know what to go for in different regions, but also when developing new products, they know which refrigerant types are trending in which regions, which is important when developing products for refrigeration systems. Then secondly, I'd like to show this case of Danfoss Enterprise Services, which is a service offering we have in the cooling segment. And it is a cloud-based service delivery platform that collects all types of data to provide powerful insights into supermarket operations. So some of the objectives on this service platform is to ensure or help our customers to ensure the food temperature to avoid food loss, and that safety standards are met. Secondly, to prevent issues before they become even bigger issues. And thirdly, to reduce energy consumption and maximize equipment performance. So I have a short video that goes along with this, which will probably explain what it's all about better than what I can do. So let's see whether it works here. Something happened here, but anyways, let's move on. I think you got the idea anyways. So this is then some of the products which is enabling this service platform, hence keeping food safe with IoT. So as you see, then we have different products here for cooling in supermarkets, ranging from, I'd say, the actuators in the bottom here, typically sensors, valves, and different modules. On top of those, we have on the application level, some controllers, which is then goes with the different product groups beneath it. And then on top of those, we have the gateway, which is the system manager, which allows us to collect the data and then send it to the cloud. And then from there, we can then leverage the data and then provide these different services for our customers. I think we have around 16 different services or something like that, and some of them are listed here. So some supermarket customers might only be subscribing to, for instance, alarm management. Some others might only be interested in energy optimization. So, for instance, subscribing to demand response or similar services. And some might go for the full package. So we can either deliver these services if it's, for instance, alarms, from a monitoring center, so we actually have call centers around the world which calls store managers to inform if there is a critical alarm. In other cases, we deliver it in dashboards or in executive reports, depending on the service. Let me just go a step back here. So some of the things we have worked on from our side in the data analytics team is to optimize on some of the services, for instance, on leak detection, to improve on the model and the rule engine for detecting when we have a leak, but also work on how we basically visualize data to enhance the analytical capabilities in our dashboards. More interestingly, then also we are working on different cases for cognitive learning for our smart store services. So some of the things we are currently working on is to be more proactive and predictive in the sense of maintenance of these products I just showed you. Also, smarter filtering of alarms for our alarm management. So if we can filter out some alarms, then it's obviously good for the end customer and for ourselves. And thirdly, also to correlate external weather conditions and the impact it has on energy consumption in the supermarkets. So I think these two cases shows pretty well the diversity of the different projects we are doing in the data analytics team. And also this I see it as an example of how we try to optimize and innovate on different service solutions, whereby the case for the refrigerant slider for me is a pretty good example of how to empower the business with the insights and information needed. So let me then move on to some of the lessons learned from this journey we have been on for data analytics. First of all, then some of the things that quite quickly became evident to me and to us is that there are certain criteria for how to make a data analytics project successful. And I think these criteria are quite well summarized into this 3 C's model for data and analytics. Many of you will probably have heard about or seen before these 3 C's, as there are many variations of them around. This one, which we have chosen to show here, is focusing on, first of all, culture. So the shared ideas and beliefs you find in an organization, and basically the way things are done around here. So for instance, working with subject matter experts like cooling technicians that work in a different way than you would typically do in a data analytics team is extremely important to understand and to grasp. Then secondly, the capabilities in an organization and in specific teams. So that can both relate to, I'd say, skills, the technologies you have at hand, and the knowledge you find, application knowledge you find in that sort of allows you to execute on certain projects. And of course, more importantly also the other way around, the lack of the same capabilities, which limits your possibilities. And then thirdly, the context. This both relates to the business context. So what is the core of the business? What is it that you need to protect and innovate on, basically? And as you see, then Danfoss has many different business lines and many different products, which we need to have a certain understanding of in order to help the business in the best possible way. But it also relates to, I'd say, who's asking the question. So who are the business stakeholders, whether it's external or internal, and how are our resources allocated for developing new products and services if it comes to internal stakeholders. So I think these 3 C's has proven to be quite well-defined influencers for whether you're successful or not with your data analytics projects. Then let me then move on to some of the takeaways that I think we've had also throughout this journey. And of course, the first one is the obvious one, which has been mentioned a few times today already. Data is, of course, the key. You're not better than the data that you have. And as with the mentioned challenges I had as well, then you should not promise anything more than what you can actually do with the data you have at hand. So that's one thing. But secondly, also, of course, be sure to work on improving the data quality best possibly. And that's where I think West has had a pretty interesting presentation, and with Danfoss as well. So it's always an issue to think about these elements. So secondly, define projects with a view to the 3 C's of culture, capability, and context, and also the EOI framework in order to help you prioritize and be successful. Then users rarely know what they want, which I think is a quite interesting one. We often have both end customers and also internal stakeholders which comes up to us and asks for having some predictive analytics or a certain algorithm or machine learning element for a project. But in many cases, when we get the specific requirements and understand the case better, then it's often not as relevant, or it might be an overkill to have these elements actually. So I'd say lead rather than follow, and that also leads me to the next point here of breaking big things into smaller things. So if we actually have a case where it is relevant to apply advanced analytics techniques or deploy a bigger solution to it, then we always try to break it into smaller things in order to make it more tangible, both for the end customer and for ourselves to be successful. And then lastly, I'd say for us it has been important to take an approach where we are able to fail fast, be flexible, and iterate on the go. Since we like to see ourselves as I'd say a startup within the company, so we try to help as many stakeholders as possible. We want to learn quickly, get in fast, but also pull out at the right time. So we should be able to always be flexible and iterate as we go on. So for us, it has been a quite interesting journey, this one, where we were forced to start small, but at the same time dream big about what we want to obtain with data analytics in an organization like Danfoss, which is going through a digital transformation, which we are trying to support best possible. So with that, I would like to conclude, and thank you for listening.